we're here to talk about supply path optimization, and specifically, supply path optimization has come about mostly because you could consider there's a duplication of auction events that are across the market that take the market away from what was the natural auction theory, which was that you have one ad, you have one ad opportunity, multiple bidders, and they all compete to buy that ad. And so what we've seen throughout the let's call it so what we've seen throughout the past number of years is in this market is that that's no longer the case. It's not a pure auction, and it's definitely not a pure second price auction. And there's there's so much duplication in the bid stream. Supply path optimization has been put forward as a term, as a way to treat that bid stream and to optimize that bid stream to extract better results for whoever is applying it, the publisher, the DSP, the media buyer, etc. In the sense of an advertiser, you might think that an advertiser's primary KPI might be to reduce the cost of media, right? And in the current environment, if a DSP on the advertiser's behalf is bidding like they think it's a second price auction, they're overpaying, right? They're overpaying for a whole host of different reasons. In some cases, it's self-competition, right? And so in some cases, their actual bid is getting put into multiple auctions, and they're competing against themselves. Unbeknownst to the DSP, unbeknownst to them, it's just that it has to do with some of the fractured nature of the market. And in other cases, they're overpaying because they think they're bidding a second price auction, but the mechanics of the actual winning auction behave more like a first price auction. So in a sense, they're paying, they're not getting the they're not getting the benefit of what they feel that they're getting, which would be a natural second price auction. So SPO creates an environment where the advertiser doesn't necessarily pay a fair price for the ad. So supply path optimization on behalf of the advertiser would naturally reduce the cost of media that they would pay without harming things like media spend and performance. So SPO for a publisher. So publishers also define SPO. There are SPO treatments, and then which I'll describe first. So you have, because of header bidding and the impact it's made on publishers, and you have announcements like Rubicon and OpenX and AppNexus all saying that they're kind of moving towards first price auctions. From a publisher's perspective or an SSP's perspective, they look at SPO as altering the auction mechanics, right? So most notably, one of the big issues that's been happening with header bidding is you have a second price auction that's happening in the header bidder. One advertiser might bid 17, but the second price is 5. So the clearing price is $5. That $5 clearing price in the header gets input into the ad server, but then it gets preempted because $5 went in. So in order to increase the win rates on header bidding inventory, Rubicon just stated this last week. AppNexus kind of has been talking about it for a while, and OpenX kind of made some noise about this too. They're altering the auction dynamics in header bidding. So when the advertiser that bids 17, they're not going to pay 17. There's still going to be some price reduction, but then a higher bid gets put in the ad server, so they have higher fill rates that they would receive, and so that's how. I would look at it as an SSP. That's how they would define supply path optimization, was kind of altering the rules of the auction mechanics so that the buyers can buy what they want, right? From a publisher's perspective, I think when you look at supply path optimization, they right now, if you look at the landscape of kind of the duplication, a lot of that is out of the control of the publisher. And so in some cases that enables things to happen like a domain spoofing, right? And kind of but understanding like the supply path and kind of bringing ads.txt into it helps a publisher that actually has unique inventory and has say a naturally competitive demand for their inventory, that in those cases, those publishers should receive a significantly higher share of wallet versus publishers that, that don't have unique inventory and don't have demand, but right now take a lot of value out of the ecosystem because they are using manipulative tactics that are, you know, kind of like daisy chaining and like, you know, and bid stuffing and resolicitation. It has a chance to, for the publisher, supply path optimization has a chance to redistribute the media spend away from some of, let's call it, the inferior publishers, and eventually the more premium publishers should benefit from that. I don't. It is very difficult for me to, you know, kind of put my finger on, you know, one party at this point. Now, again, it depends on which treatment of the supply path that you're looking to do, right? And so, like from a DSP's perspective, a DSP would want to treat the supply path to remove duplication so that they could spend less money in hardware, right? So if the goal is to spend less money in hardware, then ultimately it would be the DSP's responsibility. Right? Now, if the goal is to buy more effective media, then I think that would be ultimately, I'm not sure if that falls on the DSP, I'm not sure if that falls on the agency or the brand. I would say that the DSPs are probably the most capable, right? But because of some, you know, kind of like internal conflict, they might be less likely to. I think the DSPs are most capable, but ultimately the benefit is realized most by the brand. So I think that there's just conflict in that. SPO done right. It ultimately supports, right now if you look at the current state of auctions, right? It's like we all thought that we were in a second price auction at one point, and it seems like we're moving to a place of a first price auction. But ultimately, you know, but we're really at a place in between right now where we don't know, you know, what's happening. And what is happening is, like we all know, is that there's a host of duplication, there's a host of reselling, there's a host of, you know, kind of even some misrepresentation, you know, within there. Now, ultimately, you know, SPO is treated right. It figures out the best supply paths in the most natural supply paths for the same inventory that take the lowest fees, right? So in that sense, because you realize that as you change your bidding up and down across, like, you know, the same ad that's happening 6 different places, but your clearing price at the same bid price is happening down one channel, that channel is the channel that's taking the lowest fee, right? It just has to be naturally. So supply path optimization, you know, for the purposes of, you know, cost of media reduction, takes out intermediaries that are not adding a ton of value by just modifying and flattening the bids that are taken, you know, for the same impression. And so it ultimately weeds out a whole host of, you know, supply paths that are not adding value and taking exorbitant fees. So it does, you know, it does naturally correct the market when executed effectively.